Hello, my paper peeps. Today I want to share with you how I embellish my scrapbook journals. These are easy scrapbook ideas, not only for the beginner scrapbooker, but I bet you the intermediate to advanced scrapbook journaler will enjoy these tips and tricks too. So let's get started. Number one, I call this the embossed frame. If you like the gilded look or gold foiling, or any gold accents, then I find that this type of embossing will just add a little bit more interest to your scrapbook journals. All I used was this framed stamp that I think I got from Michaels. Yeah, I just got this from Michaels. I saw it and I'm like, you know what? I think this would be a fabulous addition to my collection. Number two, I call this layered frames. Instead of using a frame mat to place your photos on, why not add these uneven layered frames on top of the actual photos that you've placed in your scrapbook journal? And here I just used these dies, and I'll be honest with you, I find that this whole uneven look kind of worked really well with these dies, because if you try to line these up, it sometimes can be quite difficult to actually have them line up really well. So I just thought, you know what? Let's just kind of make it look like this. And it worked out. I loved having that two-tone effect and how it shined through in this example. So again, you see that gold foil embossing underneath to add that extra flair to your pictures. Here is another tip. This is what I call the art page edition. And this is in my DIY journal, where you actually add these art pages to the spine of the journal, of the binding of the journal, and they become great places to add quotes or other art pages where you can add windows with floral accents in them, or you can use alcohol ink to embellish these art windows. Again, it just becomes another interesting addition to your scrapbook journals. And if you're interested in how I created this DIY journal, I'll put a link to that in the description box below or at the end of this video, so you can access and learn how to make this DIY journal. And this DIY journal is actually part of my paper line called the Botanicals, and it is specifically for this binding system. And I actually have another binding system that you can use it in, but it's specifically for this binding system where it has these great art pages that you can add to the binding system, along with all these other interesting additions like tags, tabs, you name it. It's in that paper line. Again, I will put that link in the description box below should you decide you want to make this journal. Number four, these are Polaroid frames. And to add another layer of vintage, I love inking my black and white photos with either walnut stain distress ink or your vintage photo distress ink. It just again adds another layer to that vintage vibe we all truly love and enjoy. And if you don't have to ink it. Number five, I call this the vintage tear frame. Now, if you want to continue with that vintage look, then tearing frames like you see here really again add to that vintage vibe. And the key to getting that vintage tear, always tear towards you. And tearing towards you just allows you to expose the white underneath. And usually what I like to do is distress ink with, here I'm using frayed burlap. Number 6. I love using the ornate frame in my scrapbook journals. And you can do one of two things here. You can just leave it as is and add the photo, or you can add the photo and then use glossy accents that you can place on the frame around it. And actually placing a thick layer of glossy accents will give it that lacquered look that you see in a lot of frames these days. Or leave it as is, but add accents to the actual black and white photo like I did here. And what I did was I stamped the image with a brush stroke stamp, which I think this one is from Tim Holtz, and just to give it again more of that vintage look. Or you could stamp it with text as well. Again, just layering on top of all these images will just lend to that old, worn look. Number 7, I call this my accordion pocket frame. And this is using your junk journal envelopes to create these amazing frames that you can either add interesting artwork to, or you can make it as an accordion expansion that will act as a pocket to layer different tags, different inserts of maybe photos or quote pages or art pages or any other trinkets you want to store away for your memories. And this is a part of my paper line, The Essence of Fall. And here, again, I'm just showing different ways of how to add pockets and tags and tabs to just add a little bit more interest to your scrapbook journals. And if you're interested in this paper line, I'll put a link to that in the description box below as well. Number 8, I call this the window envelope frame. Now again, I used, in this case, just a regular envelope and I folded it in half. I decorated the envelope with, again, paper from the paper line, The Essence of Fall. And then I just punched holes on the art page, which most people would be like, oh, why are you punching holes through that beautiful paper? But I'm actually using it as a window to whatever I want to showcase underneath. And in this case, it's a quote from the paper line. And if you love insects and butterflies, oh my goodness, this is where you can really embellish them. Here I'm just using gold wire as their antennas, which gives it that 3D look. And then this page can be placed anywhere in your scrapbook journal. It could be placed on the front, it could be placed on the front cover of your book, it could be placed in the back cover of your book. And because it's so thin, you can even place it as an art page in the middle of your scrapbook journal. And here I'm just using it as an art page, but boy, you can actually cut the other end off of the envelope and then use that as a pocket should you want to add more layers to your scrapbook journal. Number 9, I call this the journal page art frame. Again, I used another one of those window envelopes, placed a little bit of decorative paper on the inside. And if your binding system is like this one, it's a no-sew binding system, you want to be able to cover up that spine where the yarn is, and this is a perfect way to do it. And if you're interested in the full video of how to create these scrapbook journal inserts, I will place that in the description box below, as well as at the end of this video. There are a ton of moving parts to a lot of my scrapbook journals, but that's because I love to add. I love to embellish. I love to just add interest to my journals. And this is kind of got an accordion fold in the center so that when it wraps around that inner yarn piece, it will actually cover it up, because what you'll do here is place double-sided adhesive and then squeeze those two ends together so that you don't see the yarn. Number 10, I call this layered frames. Why not take the frames from your paper line, and instead of just placing one, place two, one on top of the other. I tried to make it so that you can actually layer frames one on top of the other so you have this matting effect. And then you just add some sentiments like you have here. And as always, I love to lay down some washi tape to ground the focal point, which is, in this case, it's actually the quote. I really hope you enjoyed these videos. If you're interested in more tips and tricks or a more in-depth explanation of how I created these DIY journals, then you'll want to watch these videos here. Until I see you in my other videos, take care, have a fantastic week, and enjoy scrapbook journaling. We'll see ya. Bye.